When last we left our intrepid hero, we were halfway to our goal of getting 50 correct puzzles in Puzzle Rush. Haven't taken an X yet. We're already into the 1300s, presumably 1400s at this point. So let's see what else we can do here. This one looks fairly simple because material is even. We have 3 minor pieces for each side, a queen and 2 rooks, but there's a target here, and a target here, and a target here. And so what we have is a coordination of those pieces right here. Unfortunately, the knight can go back, but fortunately for us, we can stab it again with a pawn, attacking the pinned piece. Now I believe we take our prize, and then we retreat. Almost a mate in 1, not quite a mate in 1. We are down an exchange, which we can take right away by playing knight takes rook. We have a queen that can go to h2, which would be checkmate if there weren't a queen there. But other than that, we have almost no material left. So if we traded everything, we'd be losing. That's important. So we have a target of all 3 pieces. The king, because a king is always a target. The rook is attacked once and defended once. And the queen is actually not a target in this position. I misspoke because it is defended. So we can't pick it up. We have a pawn here that is a target, and we have another pawn that is a target. So for example, how you would use these targetings are like if the queen were a target, we could push a pawn and have a double attack on 2 targets. That's not the solution here. The solutions go the other way and fork 2 different targets, one here, one here. So if we play here, we are threatening a mate in 2. Take pawn, the king can't move. King cannot come out because the knight guards the back square. So the queen would block and we would take it. So I'm pretty sure that's the answer. The king won't be able to move. The queen can't take my knight, or I'll take the queen. There aren't any checks for white. Seems straightforward. Let's go ahead and play it. Yeah. Simple. Ooh, everybody's favorite puzzle. I don't think we need to wait on this one. We do need to wait. No, it's a double check. We're good. First thing I wanted to check was this diagonal. And the second thing you need to check before you look at Morphy's smothered mate is that nothing is controlling either of these squares or can interrupt your queen going all the way in or take the knight at the end of the combination. So you'll see what I mean. That was a double check. That's why the king had to move. Now we have to make sure that nothing is attacking f7. And nothing is. If there were, for example, a queen on c7, that would not win us the game. But unfortunately, there's a checkmate right there. Well, this is somewhat odd. We're playing black. And we have a rook on the 7th. And when we are attacking a king, by the way, we're down a queen. We don't have a queen. We have a queen for a rook. It's not enough, and we're down 3 pawns in addition to that. So what are Phoenix's rules? Well, Phoenix's rule says we're probably going to attack the king. Now, I'm not sure why this is complicated. This looks extraordinarily easy. Maybe players make mistakes by, like, going here or something. I don't know. But I think we're going to look at the piece that is farthest away from the king. Everybody else is doing hard work. We have a bishop attacking a king. We have a rook around the king. We've got a piece doing nothing in the back. Let's just go ahead and play mate in 1. That's weird that that's a difficult problem. 1560s should be able to see mate in 1. I don't know why they don't, but maybe they're just not looking. Oh no. I must figure this one out. You can't take the knight because it's a stalemate trick. White has made the mistake here of pushing the h-pawn all the way up to h7, creating a stalemating net. Now, the standard technique for solving a problem like this is you maneuver the knight around to control the h8 square, kicking the king out and coordinating with the pawn on that square, on h8. So we're looking to put 2 pieces on this square, so h8. So what we'd probably want to do is something like this. But it can't be that easy because the knight can go 2 different directions and only one answer is correct. What we know is incorrect is taking this knight here. We're not going to do that. So there's a second trick here, which is that if I just play either of those moves, the knight can actually make our life difficult by attacking this pawn, taking it, and if we take it back with the king, unfortunately that's also a stalemate. So we can't just maneuver the knight around like we don't care about anything. Looks like our pawn is actually under attack. So I believe what we're going to do is we're going to solve the problem of the attack on the pawn. Then we're going to take the knight, and then we're going to win the game. It's my feeling on the matter. So let's go ahead and check. And then he'll have to take the pawn, it's forced. And we take the knight, and then we queen our pawn. So this is an example of just finding out the tricks and trying to figure out what our opponent's resources are in the first place. Okay, let's count the material. Material is even. There's a rook, a queen, and a minor piece per side. As black, we are down a pawn. Seems insignificant, though, at this stage of the game. Plenty to play for when we're doing tactics. So next we want to look for targets. King is always a target. And all the pawns are defended. The queen defends the rook. The queen defends the knight and the pawn. So the knight is not a target because it's attacked once but defended twice. So not a target. Defended 3 times. Not a target. Do we have any formations that we know? We almost have a back rank set up. If we could go queen to the back rank without a knight being present, that would be mate. A rook works as well. So is there any way we can deliver a rook and then a queen? So for example, a rook and then knight and then somehow the queen gets in there. That would be a checkmate. And alternatively, we could get a queen on f7 if we wanted to. If we got a queen on f7, that would be checkmate if the knight weren't there. So essentially, we have to get rid of the knight. And I am thinking about ways to do that. It's not immediately apparent to me. But the one thing I see here is that we can actually use our pawns to start moving the pieces and discoordinating the white pieces. So I see that if we play f7, f5, the rook is attacked and must move, but it's got viable options. For example, rook e5, rook d4, all of those work. f5, rook d4, I don't have anything. You might be thinking take because the pawn is pinned, but the queen would take. And if we take the queen, the pawn is no longer pinned, so it would be lost. Pawn would just take that queen. So that doesn't seem to be the answer. What about g5? g5, this is an interesting idea. g5, queen g4, f5 now is a fork. Knight takes it though. We do have the rook in the back, except now there's a queen there, so presumably we would just take the knight. Probably. Queen takes knight. So again, that's g5, queen g4, f5, knight takes it, queen takes it, and we've won a minor piece. The queen cannot take back because, boop, checkmate in the back. The knight and queen would have been moved away from that square. So that's an idea. Don't think, though, it doesn't feel correct. Could be, though, because there's no reason the queen has to go to g5. It could go to f6, for instance, and now actually the black king is quite weak. So I don't feel like that is the right answer, but it's something to consider because if we play g5 and then queen f6, queen can take the knight check. And I think no matter how it gets recaptured, it's mate in the back. And in fact, I don't know why it took me so long to consider this. I don't actually have to move the queen first at all. I can just take it right away. We take the knight. Any of these 3 captures, causes a mate in the back. And then, of course, if the king moves away, we're just at a minimum up a minor piece. We can trade queens immediately. That has to be the answer. I spent too long trying to think about how to discoordinate pieces when I should have just been looking at checks and captures. So that is a check and a capture. I had, for some reason, actually already looked at queen c3 and saw that that leads to nothing. But this seems to be the right answer. Just remove the defender. And am I missing anything? I don't think so. There's no surprises, and he has to get out of check. So that's got to be the answer. Yay. Okay, I was a little slow on that one, but we got there in the end, and that's what counts on this mode. Got to play to the mode, right? Survival mode. Just get them right. Don't be fast, just get them right. I think I have this one. I just have to check for defenses here. What I'm seeing is a very clustered king with no troops active. Everybody's sitting lazy on the wrong side of the board on the king side, so I'm fairly certain we can just go ahead and mate in a couple, depending on the defense here. So let's try to look at defenses. If rook a2, rook f to a2, of course. Usually there's a knight sitting on f6, which spoils the party because you go rook check, king up, other rook in, check, and then the knight just takes it, and then you haven't gained anything. But of course there is no knight here in this puzzle, so looks like at best I'm really not seeing a method of defense here because we'll have the whole rank covered. So I suppose it'd be something like rook a2, pawn up, and then that still doesn't do anything. Check, and the king can't go here because there's a knight. So what else is there? Is there anything else? I don't believe there is, so let's go ahead and play it. The queen can't really help. It's threatened to mate in 2, even if the rook moves away. If the black rook moves away, it's still mate in 2. Okay, easy. Just gotta be careful. Oh, this is the same pattern we just saw. And then rook in the back. What's the defense here? What's the defense? We are down, again, a queen for rook. So have to be careful of that. Pretty much have to win a queen or win a king. So fairly certain it's just going to be a quick checkmate. I don't see any way out of it. The king can't help. The white king can't move anywhere. The rook, if the rook moves away, it's still mate. Bishop can block us for one move and we take it. And the only other thing I can see is that the queen can throw herself away for a move. And we'll just take. That doesn't do anything. It's a spite check. Doesn't change the position of anything. None of the pawns can be moved to help. So this looks like a pretty decisive result. Give me the queen. Told you. I mean, the professional thing to do is give the spite check, right? Not just give your queen away for free. You want to say, hey, at least I checked the guy. All right, so material is even. The king is precariously placed. If we could just get a move, a free move, we would be well on our way with some checks and captures and things like that. And I'm pretty sure this doesn't require any thought in that regard because the first thing you look at is checks. This is illegal. It's pinned. This doesn't do anything. King goes away. That was the first check I looked at. But again, we want to follow the rule of moving the piece that is farthest away, or another way of saying that is the piece that is doing the least. This knight is covering 2 squares around the white king, but the rooks already have that covered. And so you want to, when you think of it that way, start with the farthest away piece and look at checks. You find it very clearly. Either of these 2 checks would be mate if not for the bishop. So that rules out the knight to the center, so we go knight to the rim, checkmate in 1. If you just start your eyes with the farthest away piece, you'll go pretty far in this world. So white has the world's worst development. It seems like he spent most of the game attempting to set the pieces back up for the next game. So in that case, we are going to go with our classic maneuvers of figuring out what the targets are. And I see a knight, that is undefended, a king because a king is always a target, a rook that is undefended, and the other rook. A lot of players forget the 2 rooks, and they blunder these all the time because they think, well, they're not involved in the game, right? It's early in the game. They're not open. They're not involved. White's not developed, and then yet we see that we actually have a fully clear diagonal to the rook. So it actually can be targeted. How can we go about taking this thing, though? Perhaps it's something like queen f3, but then there's c6. Blocking that idea. Okay, I believe I found it. So we attempted to attack a single target, but this shows the power of a double attack versus a single attack. Black gets a move to defend themselves. Right? One move. Everybody gets one move in a row. So if you can attack one thing, it's easily defended, like with c6. No problems. However, if you can attack 2 things at the same time, then you're actually making some progress. So what I saw was that I can attack a king and a knight, and you don't need to figure out how to get to attacking them. The second step is figure out where 2 lines between those 2 pieces intersect. And so what I can see is something like these lines intersect. These lines intersect, and these are silly, but they give us ideas. These lines intersect. So if I could play something like queen a4, that would attack 2 pieces at the same time, and that would be a good idea. Unfortunately, though, that's blocked by a pawn, but I see a way to get to another square. And so what we could play, I think, is queen h5, queen b5, take the knight. So if queen h5, this check must be blocked. We have something like here. And then we would swing on over and double attack. A double attack's all you need because black only gets one way to defend this. So what if not g3? Check. What if the king moves? Well, now we have an interesting problem because this check looks good at first. It is a double attack, but black gets one move to save the king and knight, and that would be knight back to c6. However, we're not done because we can get yet another double attack. Check. And the queen must be defended. So the king would step back. In fact, it's the only legal move, and then we take it check, and then we win the rook. So I think we have the solution. We'll see which way black decides to lose material, though. Yep, with the pawn, because he doesn't want to lose the rook, too. If instead the king had moved, I would check, the knight would go back, I would go check, and then I would take the knight and take the rook. So, check, take the knight. Okay, so the key to that puzzle was not thinking about how do I get my pieces there. It was figuring out where do I want to go first, then figuring out how to get the pieces there. All right, we are down a knight for a queen. Black has a knight, white has a queen. So we want to look at the farthest away pieces first. It's this rook. We can take a rook. And then we would lose a knight, and then we can go check, 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 and draw. That's one possibility. But another possibility would be to move the knight first. Check. And then move. And then we take the rook. And now we have a knight and a rook for a queen with some threats because it's actually a favorite checkmating pattern of mine. A knight 2 squares away from a king and then a rook coming into checkmate. So my concern, however, is that our king is not safe. What I see, though, is there is a white queen on dark squares. It's on the dark square diagonals. And our king has flight to a light square, which tells us why this pawn is here. It's stopping the queen from transferring herself to a light square diagonal. So I believe it's knight, king, rook, rook, king. And now we notice that the queen is on a dark square, and that matters. Because the queen is on the dark square, it can never do a knight hop to check the king. So let's see if that's the right answer. Well, it's forced, for one thing. The only question is, are we losing? If I played this check, the king has one legal move. And if I play here and take this rook on b2, using the b rook, of course, to take it, then there's only one legal move. Sorry, there's not one legal move, but there's only one move that makes any sense because mate is threatened, and that would be the check. I mean, he could give me another rook if he wants, but it's actually mate the other way. So that's the answer. I realized that once I have two rooks here, that rook B is checkmate, but I missed that actually the other rook is also checkmate too. So that seems to be the answer. So I believe it's going to be knight, the king will move, I'll take the rook, I'll get checked, I'll move the king, and that's the end. Almost. And I move the king. And is that the end of the puzzle? Or is he going to give me the rook as a sacrifice? He does. He gives me the rook as a sacrifice because he's a computer. And it's the only legal move. And now I think maybe even he'll give me the queen, maybe? Yep. Yeah, spite checks from a computer. Wonderful. In this case, we have a hanging queen that is pinned to the king. We're up a rook, though, so if we can just dance out of danger, we're up a rook. Typically in tactics, if you can get two rooks for the queen, that's good enough. I see it. Okay. But I was going to say we need a little bit more, and then I, of course, see how we get a little bit more. So noticing that we're already up the rook is the way to solve this puzzle. That's why you start with counting the material, or at least noticing the material. So, because then you know what you need to get. And in this case, I think I'm just going to go ahead and take the rook, and then the knight will take back, and then I will check, and the king will move, and then I will take the knight, and then I will have two rooks and a bishop for a queen, and that's good enough. Yay. 37, everybody. 37. Okay, I have two options here. We are in an even game. I have three options, and one of them is clearly better. I was thinking of going up and then trying to checkmate. And I was also thinking of check, 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 and seeing where that leads, but turns out this is quite simple. I don't know what the problem is here, but we're going to have a mate in one. Okay, thank you. That was a 2,000 level puzzle, everybody. 2,000. A 2,000 rated puzzle, it's a mate in one. All you had to do is look at all the checks and not move quickly. And then you have it. All right, so I think we're finally at the stage where I start usually getting some wrong. Once we're over the 2,000s, I really start to get them wrong. And then 2,400, we really struggle. So hopefully I can do a little bit better this time. If I just maintain my discipline, I think maybe we can get to 50. Let's hope. In this one, material is even. Everybody has everything except a pawn. White's down a pawn. Usually, as I've said, that's insignificant. That's very significant in a real game, but it's insignificant in a puzzle. So I see the obvious targets of 1, 2. I'm going to say the queen is a target because the bishop attacks through the pawn to the queen, and then the rook in the corner. We have sort of a pseudo target on g4 because it's attacked once and defended once. If we can cause the bishop to move away, we would be able to take the knight, or even if this pawn moves up. That would be the more likely thing. A pawn move up, then we take the knight somehow. So I'm guessing these are the targets that are of interest. So do we want to go check first? And then the king moves to the corner. And then perhaps we take the bishop because our bishop is protected. And then the queen will have to take back. And now we have a serious chance at actually taking some stuff. So we could, for instance, push the knight away, and then we take the pawn, and then we're winning stuff. So that would win a pawn, and then we'd be material even, and then I would get another pawn, and that's a decent start in a game, but I don't think that's really the solution to a puzzle. We usually want to win a piece or something. So the other option would be I take a pawn, material is now even. I lose the knight, I take the rook, I lose that piece, and then I don't really see anything else that works. So we're going to go back to the beginning of what seems the most promising is the three targets here. We're going to go check. The king will have to move. And now, instead of hunting the queen, let's hunt the king. Knight check. And then the queen is attacked, and the knight is attacked, and that ought to do her. So I want to emphasize again how I found this is by looking at the targets. Okay, pawn, queen are lined up against the bishop, and then the king. Now the king is still a target. And so I thought about the capture first because I was locking in on the other target, but it's much simpler. Just take the pawn. Ta-da. See how the queen is attacked and the king is attacked? Game. Huh. Well, that seems an obvious sort of tactic here. We've got the knights and everything. So the problem is the knight is entangled with the queen. Queen hangs. So we got to figure out a way to stop that from happening. Let's count the material. 3 minor pieces for each side, 2 rooks and a queen. Let's look at the targets. 1 and 1, so the queen's a target. 2 and 2. Sorry, 2 against 1. The knight is a target. The king is always a target by rule. So how can we move stuff to take advantage of these targets? That's all there is, by the way. This knight is defended twice, so it's not a target. A separate idea, I don't see how it works at all right now, is to somehow move the knight away. Provoke this pawn to move, and then take the rook in the back. It's a decent idea, actually. So I can see how black can blunder it, but I don't see how it's forced at all. It's knight take, pawn take, check, king moves, so we take a rook and his mate. But this is ridiculous. That's just not. Why would you take with the f pawn? Well, maybe I can make him do it, and he doesn't want to. Or I find a problem with his other solution. What if I play knight takes, pawn takes, and now this pawn is attacked? Excuse me, the knight is attacked. And so for that reason, I don't like this line. Am I missing something, though? I am breaking my rule here, which is that I should be looking at targets and that knight is not a target, and I think I demonstrated just why, because there's always some other solution. Just take with the h-pawn and no problems. Unless there is a problem. I don't see it. I don't see the problem with h takes g. So I've wasted time calculating something that probably won't work. Another possible answer is pushing the pawn. Now, if it's captured with this pawn, we have choices. We can take a knight. It's a piece. But I think, can the queen or knight just take it? I don't see how the sacrifice helps anything quite yet. Perhaps it does, but I don't think so. Now, I also see I can go check. That attacks a target, the king. It would get captured. And now I have a pin. Sort of, but the bishop is in the way. And not to mention my queen is hanging. So let's start with checks and captures then. That's a check. Take. My bishop is hanging. I'm down a piece for no reason. I don't have any checks. So instead I have to look at captures. I take the queen. He takes me back. Now I'm still down a knight and my bishop's attacked, and it seems wrong. So let's look at a different check. Knight check. This knight takes it. My queen is hanging. I'm down a piece. I don't like either of those things. My preference is to be up a queen, not down a queen. So let's try some other capture. But knight takes. Again, h. Knight is pinned. Take. And then take here. And I don't see how I've helped my cause by the effect of that would be I'd be down a knight, and the 2 pawns would be 1 up each. My queen is yet again hanging. I don't have any sort of tactic that would work there, because I would need multiple moves. I need to somehow go like this, like this, like this, like this. Checkmate. But That seems silly. So what is the answer here? Let's take another look at maybe recapture here. And then I lose my queen. Not seeing that. Once we're over 2,000, things get really, really hard. Do we have other options? I'm wondering if we can pick on the rooks somehow. So this knight is pinned to checkmate as long as my knights stay where they are. So what if I went like bishop hits the rook or something? And if the knight takes it, we just checkmate. So what if bishop and then like rook, then here? Then the rook has to move away or something. If I can push the rook away, like something like rook c2, the queen becomes undefended, and finally just check, take the queen. Victory is mine. So bishop, though, thing is, I guess we could take the knight, take the knight. Rook still has to move. What if knight takes here? No, still mate. Okay, I'm liking this move more and more. If bishop e7, I'm threatening to win an exchange. And probably further complications, because if the rook moves away, f7 becomes weak, and it won't be part of the tactic, but it'll be part of the game and why the tactic works. So again, if knight takes it, we have mate in 1, so that's not going to happen. So what if queen takes the knight? No, that's silly. We'll take. So that's not going to happen. What if knight takes knight? Do we take the rook? Probably not. Probably maintain our posture with this knight. Rook moves, we defend it. Defend the bishop, that is, attacking the rook. And then we can probably play like h4, h5, get rid of the knight and mate. So I'm feeling like this is a pretty good shot. I think I'm going to take it. I think we're going to go for it. Oh, no. That's our first miss. All right. I think that we're going to take our breather right there, recoup. We got 1x. I still need to get to my 40 before I can call this mission a true success. We're going to take a pause right there, and I'll see you guys when we resume this next episode.